Round 5 marked the end of the first block of games in the URC, and the early contenders are beginning to emerge. My name's Mark, let's talk rugby. Okay, so just before we get into today's video, just like to say, as always, thank you for taking the time to actually watch one of my videos. I don't ask very often, but if you wouldn't mind, maybe hit that like button, subscribe if you're not subscribed, etc. It really helps the channel out. But enough of that, let's put that aside. Okay, so today we're only going to go through the results. Normally I talk about a little bit about the kind of back and forth in the matches, but we're not going to do so much of that today. So I'm going to start with, let me pull up here. So the first game of the weekend, and that was Glasgow Warriors 21 and the Watercombe Bulls 12. And there's a full review of this on the channel if you want to, get a bit more detail on it. But as a bit of a summary, so, we had early tries from Tupolatu and Jacobs for both of the sides. Then, into the second half, then Willie LaRue over for the Bulls, and then we have a couple of yellow cards, one for each team, Macbeth and then Clopper. And in the last 15 minutes, penalty try to Glasgow, and then Macbeth over to, kind of decide the result, because it's very close all the way through, and deny the Bulls a losing bonus point as well. So a pretty entertaining game. It wasn't as high scoring as people probably expected it to be, but you could still see it was two quality sides going head to head in the game, and there was a nice back and forth through it as well. Up until basically that Nathan Macbeth try, like the Bulls were definitely in the reckoning to potentially win the game as well. Couldn't quite do it, but the Bulls, for the most part, it's very rare that the Bulls don't turn up in a game. You look back maybe to even the game against Ulster, it was only really a 10-minute period in the second half where Ulster kind of, really took advantage in that 10-minute period to make the score a bit more one-sided than maybe the rest of the game would have said. And in this one, again, I think the Bulls fairly competitive, and there's a reason why they've been up there, at the pointy end of the table every single season so far of the URC. Glasgow Warriors though as well, another team who've been up there. And yeah, it was probably for me at least, one of the games of the weekend, even though it wasn't that high scoring. Okay, on to the next one then. At the Lions 49, Ulster 31. So this one, if you're looking for tries galore, we had 7 tries from the Lions and 5 from Ulster. And, a lot of them kind of, first like 10 minutes, there were 3 tries. You had, who was a Kutsia and Cater over for the Lions, and then Balakoon got over for Ulster. Balakoon actually ended up with a hat-trick. And, Rob Balakoon, love him as a player. He's just one of those players that you wish he was fit for a longer time, because if he could get a run, I think, his form then would be very hard to ignore for Ireland. But the fact that, he'll come along, he'll have like a patch where he looks like he's playing out of this world, gets injured, and then he kind of, he kind of drifts out of your consciousness for a while. And it's very hard to kind of press your case there, I feel, with, so many players trying to get into the Ireland squad at the minute. But yeah, he ends up with a hat-trick. And then for the Lions, like they had, we had James Hume as well over for Ulster before half time. But then for the Lions, you had Venter, Duplessis, Van Wyck, Van Vuren, and then right at the death, Mornay Brandon as well for them. And second half for Ulster, you had Balakoon getting the second just before half time, then completes his hat-trick about 10 minutes into the half, and Dave McCann with about 15 minutes to go went over for them. But it was really the last 10 minutes. The game was kind of a little bit back and forth between the teams, but last 10 minutes then the Lions blew out the score a little bit. As I said, Van Wyck, Van Buren and Brandon all getting over for tries in that period. And, bonus point win for the Lions. They really needed something because they did have a really poor start to the season. Ulster, by contrast, a really good start for them. And, at least, I suppose, from their point of view, they're coming away with a try bonus point. Even, they had kind of chances maybe to win the game in terms of just, the way it was back and forth, but the Lions just produced the stronger finish and absolutely deserved the win in the end. Final score, Lions 49, Ulster 31. Okay, on to the next one then. So this is Hollywood Bet Sharks 29, Scarlets 19. And, Scarlets sitting, well, we'll look at the table in a minute, but, pointless up until this point of this game, looking for something, on their travels. They haven't really had a great start to the season, but, it's actually Vincent Chituka over for the Sharks in the first couple of minutes. But, Scarlets do respond, who's it? Marnus van der Merwe over for them. But then the other brother, Manu Chituka, over in the first quarter for the Sharks. A couple of minutes later, then Blair Murray in for the Scarlets. So showing a bit of that fight that we saw from them last season. Then we have Mazubuko over for the Sharks' third try before the break. And then within 10 minutes of the restart, all of the try scoring is done. We have Tom Rogers for the Scarlets' third and Sia Khaleesi for the bonus point try for the Sharks. And then, other than a penalty from Jean Smith with about 15 minutes to go, no other real scores until the end of the game. Final score, Hollywood Sharks 29, Scarlets 19. Okay, on to the next one then, and it was Leinster 50, Zebre 26. Zebre very competitive in this. This is another one where we have a full review on the channel. You want to check that out. And it kind of stuck into about kind of 50 minutes. And then, Leinster just kind of pulled away. But Zebre did manage through Zanon to get a late score to actually get their bonus point try at the game. So they came away with a point from the game too. But, we had JJ Kenny. He goes over after 2 minutes. Then Alex Soroka, who I thought was excellent, with two tries in the first kind of 12 minutes from him. We have Baloney with a response from Zebre. Then we had Dominguez getting over as well, quick thing from him from tapping a penalty. Then JJ Kenny for his second for Leinster. All before half time. Then Quattrini in for Zebre's third try. Then we have our break in the second half. Then, as I said, Zanon gets that bonus point try for Zebre with about 10 minutes to go. But Leinster in the second half get another 4 tries. They got 8 in total. They had Cahir, Harry Byrne, Orgy Sneyman, and then Will Connors with the last say of the game. We also had 2 20-minute red cards in the game. One for Andrew Osborne, basically taking the player or taking the legs out from under Panny as he went for a high ball. And then Thomas Dominguez with a no, on his knees, no arms tackle as well. Both basically went to the bunker and got upgraded to 20-minute reds. But final score was Leinster 50, Zebre 26. Okay, on to the next one then. So it was Benetton 16, Stormers 31. So Stormers, one of the absolute form teams of the season, start really well with Sandy getting over for a try. We have penalties back and forth between Umaga and Matty as well, through both halves of the game. But in terms of try scorers, Lewis Lina gets Benetton's only try of the game. And then second half, then Matty and right to death, Smith goes over for the Stormers' third try. And that kind of, at that stage, it was, 26-16, I think. So Stormers already had the game won, but I guess, Benetton could potentially have got themselves back for a losing bonus point, but Smith made sure that wasn't possible. Benetton 16, Stormers 31. Okay, on to the next one then. Dragons 19, Ospreys 19. So the Dragons' second draw of the season after that 17-all draw against the Sharks a couple of rounds ago. And, it's actually Ospreys who started the better of the teams. Who's a Deves over within 15 minutes. Then they get a second try through Cockney, and looking like it's just going to be another poor performance from the Dragons. But then Roger Williams, just before the break, he goes over for them, and then into the second half, looks like Ospreys trying to reassert their control of the game. Hopkins over, and they've got 35 minutes left. Another try, bonus point win, and they'll think it's a good night's work for them. But it's actually the Dragons then who take control from the last quarter of the game. They have Coughlin over with 20 minutes to go, and then 5 minutes to go. Then Burrows gets over as well, and right to that, then Cassende got sent to the bin, but no further scores in the game. But Dragons, I'd say be fairly happy with just picking up more points. So Dragons 19, Ospreys 19, the final score. On to the next game then, and that was Munster 17, Connacht 15. Again, a full review on the channel if you want to go check that out. And this one, as I said in the intro for the video on this game, certainly not a classic, but still we had 6 tries in the game. So we had Jack O'Donoghue over early for Munster. Then we have a double from Byron Ralston, and unfortunately he went off injured as well. He had to get treatment on the field before being taken off. So wish him a speedy recovery. And then Kilgallen gets in for Munster before the break. And it's only the conversion from J.J. Hanrahan giving Munster a 2-point lead at the break. In the second half, then Connacht go ahead through a score by Paul Boyle, and then Munster really having to work for the win. And with about 10 minutes or just over 10 minutes to go, Jack O'Donoghue gets over for what turned out to be the winning try for them, not converted. Only one conversion of the whole game. And then the game ended, first of all, Munster trying to get that bonus point try, and then they get turned over, and then it's Connacht trying to go from their own 22 up the other end to get themselves not just a winning try, but it would have been a winning bonus point try for them as well. But no more scores in the game, and it ended Munster 17, Connacht 15. Okay, and then on to the final game of the weekend, and that was Cardiff Rugby 20, Edinburgh 19. So in this one, again, lots of early scores. Like a lot of the games actually had scores in the first 10 minutes. We have Wells over for Edinburgh, and then Mulder responds for Cardiff, but then not really looking after a restart, Cardiff, and Charlie Shield gets over for Edinburgh within 2 minutes of them scoring. And then before 20 minutes is done, Josh Adams over for Cardiff. And at that stage then, you're thinking it's been a busy start, but it's not even done at that stage, because I think that was like 15, 16 minutes. And then Ewan Ashman on 20 minutes goes over for Edinburgh. So 3 tries for Edinburgh in the first 20 minutes, 2 for Cardiff, and Edinburgh with the lead going in at the break. But then into the second half then, and Sebastian over within 2 minutes of the restart to put Cardiff in the lead, to bring them back into the game. Sorry, I think it was at that stage 19 19-17 to Edinburgh at that stage. And then 5 minutes to go, then Johan Lloyd pops over a penalty to clinch the victory for Cardiff. So fair play to Cardiff there, getting that win. Edinburgh this season, though, kind of a bad mark against them is now that they've been on the wrong end of a couple of close games as well, and you don't really want to always be on the wrong side. So there's definitely something for them to sort out there. But final score, Cardiff Rugby 20, Edinburgh 19. Okay, so let's have a look how that leaves the table going into the 1 month break for the November International. So top of the table, in first place, you have DHL Stormers, 5 wins out of 5, 23 points, riding high. And, for them, obviously, decent attack. I think it's only Glasgow who scored more points than them so far this season. But 39 points conceded, by far the lowest conceded as well. So, firing in attack, but also very solid in defence from them. And that's, early on looking really good. Munster as well there in second. 5 wins out of 5 for them as well. Not quite, in terms of performance, other than, again, best performance of the season was that, shellacking that they gave Leinster. But against Connacht, again, kind of dropped to that same level that we've seen them. But they're winning games, and they're winning tight games, and that's going to stand to them, come later on in the season as well. They're going to have so much, credit in the bank in terms of being able to deal with those situations compared to other teams. But they're there in second place on 23 as well. So, not much between themselves and the Stormers. It's just that points difference. Third place then is Glasgow Warriors, 4 wins out of 5 for them, and they're on 20 points. Cardiff then, wearing the Cardiff shirt in recognition of how well they started the season. So 4 wins out of 5 for them as well, and on 20 points. So, solidly in the top 4 going into the break, and that's brilliant to see. They had a great start to the season last season as well, and now it's about, come back after that break, keep that momentum going, perform well in Europe, and kind of have the two, if you're going well in 2 competitions, it really can kind of cause a positive feedback loop within your squad as well. When you think okay, we're competing in the URC and we're competing in Europe as well. So hopefully they can do that. Ulster then in 5th place, 3 wins out of the 4 games so far. The first defeat of the season for them against the Lions there at the weekend. So their 100% record is gone, but still, with 1 game less played than all the teams above them, sitting in 5th place on 16. Then we have the Bulls in 6th place, 3 wins out of 5, and they're on 14. So that defeat at the weekend to Glasgow, I kind of said it before in the preview that, one of those teams was going to be still up there at the sharp end. The other would be down kind of in the melee behind them. And generally in the URC, you kind of look at it like it's, it's top 4. And then, it's, 5th place is kind of, can be part of either the top group or whatever, but 6 down is kind of that melee that generally kind of fights it out for the remaining positions. A long time to go in the season though, and you would expect the Bulls to probably rise up that league at some point. One team I'm hoping will rise up that league is my own team, Leinster, there in 7th place. So 2 wins out of 5 for them. Only their 2nd win of the seasons against Zebre there on 11 points. The Lions then in 8th, started very badly with the European tour, but they've gotten home now and they've got 2 wins out of 2 at home and must be feeling a lot more confident than they were. And they're just behind Leinster on 11 points as well. 9th place Zebre then, 2 wins out out of 5 for them too, but a battling performance away to Leinster. And, that's good to see because we've seen them being good at home this season. And it was the first time I really felt, well, they've only had 2 away games, but still their other away game, they were kind of, didn't really turn up at all against Ospreys. So good to see them putting in, a proper performance away from home. They're, on 10 points and ahead of their Italian rivals there as well. So Benetton in 10th place on 2 wins as well with 9 match points. Edinburgh in 11th place, just 1 win out of 4 for them so far this year on 9 points. And Connacht in exactly the same position in 12th, 1 win out of 4 and 9 match points for them. Then we have the Sharks in 13th place. So first win of the season for them there at the weekend. So 1 win, 1 draw and 3 losses for them for 8 points. Ospreys in 14th, 1 win, 1 draw and 3 points for 7 points. Then the Dragons keeping themselves off that, bottom spot at the minute. 2 draws and 3 losses so far this season for them, 5 points. And then rock bottom, the Scarlets, 4 losses out of 4 and no match points gained at all this season. So, and when you think about the fact that, the WWU have announced that, they are going to get rid of one of the regions. You don't want to be the bottom team there, but also for Ospreys and Dragons, you don't want to be down there 14th and 15th in the league either, because it's weird because it means that like Cardiff, the team who basically went bust and had to be taken over by the WRU, are the one who are doing well up there in 4th place, and it would be a very hard argument to make to say Cardiff are the team to have to go. So if that's the case, then it's one of the other 3, and unfortunately, the obvious candidate would be Dragons, given how poorly they, season on season they have performed. But if they're able to stay above Scarlets, maybe they can kind of, it's almost like kind of dragging the other teams down with them, right? Just to have, another candidate for that at the moment. But yeah, like for me personally, I said it, like I made my feelings very clear on this. I don't want to see any regions or clubs or wherever going away, whether that's in Wales or Ireland or Scotland or wherever. I want all of the teams that are there now to be there, but for me, I want the URC to be expanding, not contracting. And it also means in terms of like, if that's what they're going to do, go down to 3 clubs, then what's the rest of their plan for the future? There's this whole thing about, are the Welsh regions going to stay in the URC? There's always, it's never far away kind of the talk of, they from within Wales saying we should go and join up with the English in the Premiership instead. And then if they only have 3 regions, is that more attractive to the Premiership, or how would that work and that kind of thing? But for me, from my point of view, as a URC fan, I don't want to lose any Welsh teams from the URC. Certainly don't want to lose all of the URC team or the Welsh teams from the URC, but I don't want to lose any of them at all. Like, hopefully, because there is time before obviously decisions have been made, but sometimes, decisions can be reversed if things are going better. But seeing Ospreys, Dragons and Scarlets, the bottom 3 in the URC, isn't going to change any minds anytime soon, is it? So, for me, it's a little bit devastating, honestly, to hear that, one of these 3 teams, right, is basically going to be gone. And, I just always think of it from my point of view, right? Like, I'm a Leinster fan, and if Leinster at some point cease to exist because they're not financially viable or they're not competitive enough or wherever it is. Like, yes, I'm going to have an interest in, and I always do have an interest in the other Irish provinces, but it's not to say that there won't be my province. I'm not going to suddenly be, okay, well, now I'm a Munster fan or a Connacht fan or an Ulster fan. And, I feel like whichever of the Welsh teams it is that goes away, it's going to be the same for a lot of those fans as well, that was their team and now that team is gone. How do you retain them as fans then within that professional environment within Wales? I think that's going to be very difficult. And also, like, if they decide, well, all we're going to do is we'll get rid of one team, but then we'll rebrand the other three teams to include wherever area, has to go away. But that's a difficult one as well, because then you're affecting the fans of those teams too, in terms of, well, is now, like, if it's not the Ospreys anymore or the Scarlets anymore, like you've obviously got older fans who they go back to the old, I think, was it called the Welsh Premiership or like the Welsh League, where obviously they had a ton of clubs and you were a fan of your club, and then those clubs then, weren't seen as basically being sustainable in terms of all being able to be properly supported in financially and have a proper, proper professional set of clubs. There was just too many of them. So then the regions were created, and obviously fans of those clubs, some of them are, that you'd still be finding your club, obviously, but some of them said, okay, well, that's my region now, so, and adopted. But then you have like a group of fans, like the regions aren't like, they're not like, only a few years old. Obviously, they're nowhere near as old as the clubs, but they've been here long enough that you have kids now who, young kids that for all of their memory or their rugby lives, as it were, they've been Dragons fans or Scarlets fans or Ospreys fans. That's their team that they've grown up with. And if that team goes away, I think it would be difficult, I think, for some fans. But you look at it and think it's an economic reality, but also, for something like rugby, I feel that a lot of administrators have very short-term thinking on things, and it's all about, having things like 5-year plans and stuff is great, but you should also have a strategic vision for 20, 40, 50 years, like beyond your time. And I don't really feel like very few, rugby unions have that kind of farsightedness. A lot of it is kind of how can we make more money now? Like, how can we save money? How can we get new money in, etc. now, and not really look into the future? And, some of the unions are like that and some aren't. And what example I would say about that is the women's game, where you can see the likes of England, and France and a few others as well, like properly investing in the women's game, and they're going to be reaping the benefit of that in years to come, because they're going to be able to, fill Twickenham twice as many times a year, because they'll be filling it for the women and for the men as well, and not having to, like at the moment, obviously you can fill it, but the ticket prices be a lot lower. But when, like, in maybe 20 years' time, that won't be true. Like, the prices will probably be very comparable between the two. But I guess that's the way rugby is. And I said I was going to keep this one short. Sorry, I went on a bit of a rant, but I think it was a rant that was needed. I couldn't just ignore what's happening in Welsh rugby, and I'd be interested to see, any Welsh fans or any fans at all, like what you think, because like even as Irish fans, we know that Connacht were up on the chopping block, as well at one point when Ireland was thinking the same thing, where we can't be supporting four provinces, and Connacht were the obvious team to get chopped. And after that, then Connacht went on to win the old, what was it, Pro 14 or the Pro 12 or wherever it was, when they won it, like basically this competition just with a different name. So that's how like teams can turn themselves around as well. And then you look at as well, like Zebre were basically like, they were thinking, well, we're going to get rid of Zebre and we're going to have a team, I think, based in Rome was the idea. And then Zebre said, not too fast. And they started to turn themselves around as well. And they kind of, kept the wolf away from the door there too. So yeah, just interesting to see, what do you think about how the URC has gone so far this year? And also if you have opinions on what's going on in Wales as well, I'd love to hear those down in the comments.